get started. So welcome to Courageous and Creative Leadership, an event to reflect with and celebrate SIF's 2019 cohort. Today, we're going to hear about the journey and accomplishments of the 2019 cohort, and we'll also hear reflections from a few innovators and track partners. We'll spend some time in breakout rooms where you'll get to hear sort of more from a couple of innovators in a smaller setting, and you'll also have a chance to share your own reflections if you wish. I'm Jetta Knackle. I'm a program manager at SIF. Really excited to be here with you today. A couple of Zoom tips. We have closed captioning available if you click the CC button. We will definitely encourage you throughout the program today to be active in the chat, and there'll also be a few times when we invite folks to unmute and sort of share things with the group. So feel welcome to do that if that feels good to you. And then finally, I'd like to suggest if you watch today's program in speaker view, you'll see the slide on one side of your screen and the person speaking large on the other side of your screen. Of course, if you like to see everyone's little box, feel free to watch in gallery view as well. So this is SIF's marketplace for social change. In our marketplace, nonprofit leaders and funders and supporters come together to drive social change in Greater Boston. And today's event really exemplifies that because we'll be engaging in learning and dialogue with each other. And these are SIF's core values: diversity, equity, and inclusion, continuous learning, deep relationships, engaged community, and nimbleness. And during these past 2.5 years, while the 2019 cohort was in the accelerator program, the staff at SIF actually developed this list of core values. And so we've also spent this time learning about what these core values mean for us. And we'll hear about this later today, but we've also really seen this group of innovators exemplifying these values as well. I'm hearing a little bit of background noise, so if there are folks who are not muted and could mute up, that would be great. Awesome, thanks. So this is the 2019 cohort. Who we're here to hear about today. So these 8 organizations first joined SIF in December of 2018. For the first 5 months, they worked closely with consultants and the SIF team to prepare their 4-page prospectus, where they laid out their performance measurement goals, along with a graphic model and 5-minute pitch, which they delivered at the showcase in May of 2019. And a lot of you were there with us that day. After that, the lead innovators and many members of their teams turned their focus to leadership development by participating in executive coaching, and they continued connecting with the SIF team through quarterly check-in calls. This past December, we officially welcomed them to our alumni portfolio, where they will have access to continued skill building, capacity building, and leadership building opportunities alongside other nonprofits in SIF's network. This cohort has faced truly unprecedented challenges in their time in the accelerator. As it has been for so many of us, it's been a time of great innovation, learning, and resiliency for them. We'll dig into more of that later today. But first, we want to spend some time highlighting some of their many accomplishments. I've got to tell you, we could actually spend the whole hour and 15 minutes highlighting their accomplishments. There are so many we could highlight for each of them. And after today, we're publishing their progress reports. So we encourage you to read those and learn more about their impact. So first is Boston Youth Wrestling. So Boston Youth Wrestling began the process of merging with Beat the Streets Providence to expand their impact and create the first regional wrestling-based youth development organization. Disability Policy Consortium led a successful advocacy campaign to overturn Massachusetts crisis standards of care that discriminated against people with disabilities. They also played a key role in writing new anti-discriminatory standards. Dream Out Loud Center successfully modified programming during COVID to continue serving New Bedford area youth and increased collaborative programming, including their Get Out and Art Summer Initiative, in which 7 to 13-year-olds created original podcasts. English for New Bostonians launched its Workplace ESOL initiative with hospitality, retail, and manufacturing firms, and created a virtual format and curriculum to teach English, customer service, finance, and safety skills. Leap for Education expanded to Lynn, increasing the number of middle school students served by 50%. Page Academy undertook renovations to develop an outdoor classroom and community walking path while continuing to innovate its culturally resonant curriculum. Urban Farming Institute created the Boston Farms Community Land Trust, setting a national precedent for urban farmland, and 3 of their properties have gone back into the land trust and are being leased to UFI. And last, but certainly not least, Y2Y launched a new site in New Haven, Connecticut, while also keeping its Cambridge location open every night since the onset of the pandemic, with no COVID cases among guests in 2020. So I think what an amazing set of accomplishments. So I invite you all in the chat, using an emoji, unmute yourself, just like, let's just spend a minute celebrating this cohort and saying congratulations to them and all they've accomplished.
Woo!
Woo!
Someone yelled, woo! I love it.
Great job, everyone.
I see clapping.
Fantastic.
Yay.
The dream team. Yes.
Amazing.
So next, I would like to introduce my colleague, Sarah Dingy, a program manager at SIF.
Great, Jenna, thanks so much. And another round of applause and congratulations to the 2019 cohort for their amazing work these past couple of years. So now we're going to hear from 3 people connected to the 2019 cohort, 2 innovators and 1 track partner. We know these past 2.5 years have been unprecedented. And as the 8 organizations in the 2019 cohort made their way through the accelerator program, they also faced the twin pandemics of COVID-19 and the national reckoning about racism. This year, we're inviting our community to reflect with us on the following prompt. What have the past 2 years taught us that we want to carry forward, both from the experience of being in the accelerator and from the broader experience of leading during this unprecedented time? What pushed our thinking? What have we done differently? And how will it inform us moving forward? So now I would like to bring forward Bjorg Wigney, Executive Director of Boston Youth Wrestling, to share her reflection on this prompt. Welcome, Bjorg.
Hi, everyone. I'm going to keep myself accountable here. We have 5 minutes to go over the last 2.5 years of an organization. So here goes. Well, you know, we all remember March of last year. And as an organization, we're like, okay, well, how bad could it be, right? Maybe 2 weeks and we'll be back. And we knew that coming into this, the first thing to go was going to be wrestling and the last thing to come back was going to be wrestling. So you can't get much closer than a contact sport. So like, what does a wrestling organization do for an entire year during this time? And with the support of SIF, the incredible community that we have, not only here in Boston, but throughout New England and nationally, we thrived over the last year and we're really proud of our accomplishments. It didn't come easy. There was a lot of self-reflection. There was a lot of doubt and, you know, internal structures that had to be changed. And what we knew is that we had to stay true to our core values. And that was like, how do we engage, enrich, educate, empower, and evolve? And the number one priority right there was our kids. And so when schools closed down, we are a no miss meals program. We knew that we had to find an alternative way to keep our kids fed. So we became a meal site. And over the last 14 months, we've distributed over 30,000 meals. We knew that our kids needed this space for growth and for structuring. And so we participated in a Million Minutes Challenge nationally with other wrestling organizations to make sure that the kids stay connected. And then suddenly they had access to things like our US team members, Olympic athletes. And that was a huge thing for us because something that we didn't know we could do individually. We try to stay connected in a fun and positive way. And then obviously justice talks and talking about the issues in real life that were happening day in and day out and affecting our kids. And so we brought all of our kids together and with members of the community and had really honest, deep conversations. And that was amazing to see. And then we knew that people needed a way to continue to support their families. So we created jobs and paid opportunities for our kids. And so they were able to stay engaged in school, help us with our meal sites, and focus on what they needed to focus on, which was their health and their families. So during that time, we grew as an organization where we're no longer Boston Youth Wrestling. We are now Beat the Streets New England. And that came because Boston Youth Wrestling and Beat the Streets Providence have been working together for the last 7 years and realized that this is the time. This is the best opportunity we're ever going to have to look in and to make some changes. And so we had to, upgrade everything, upgrade our mindset, our, equipment, everything, build up support. So like the incredible, like I said, community, SIF, each other, Boston and Providence joining forces, and take care of the team, right? The team was taking care of the kids and it was my job to take care of our team. So we needed more people. And while people were being laid off, we made it a point to bring in more, better benefits, and then trust in my team to make sure that, they were able to just live their lives and take care of themselves while we were going through this. And that was really important. And I know that that example started with me. So like, these are our working hours. These are your off hours. You got to respect your time and take care of yourself while you're at home and find that balance. And so that was really the catalyst for this merger. And I was so proud to see that not only were we able to build over the last years, but to see something like my team in Providence really start to grow and start to understand like how this whole like infrastructure of a regional organization was beneficial and how we were stronger together was the importance of it. And that's exactly what happened. We came out of it knowing that wrestling is one of those communities that often people tend to hold on to and protect their little like bubble. But as we knew that it was going to be longer and longer and longer before we would actually get on the mat, that we needed all of this time to build together, reflect together, and grow together. And that included like opportunities for the team to develop their skills, building up leaders while we could in each city, and supporting them in every way possible so that they could, again, focus on the kids. And then we learned a lot about like, wow, these virtual programs are going to be beneficial even past COVID. Obviously, no one wants to be virtual like 30 hours a week, but there were kids that we knew might not be able to travel at night, and this is a way to connect with them. There are kids that we knew, especially in our girls programming, may not be able to be in a co-ed space, and this was a way for us to allow them to, not allow them, to provide an opportunity for them to participate. And then we really started building up our partnerships and understanding that like it was more than just a partnership. We were building our family. And so any partner that came in became a part of our family and became a part of our circle. And so that's how we look at everyone moving forward. It's not just a partner. It's not just a paid site. This is someone who's a part of our family and an extension of ourselves. And I think that was the biggest takeaways, is that it takes a village, and I don't want to take that away from anyone. And this was the time for us to really reflect on that and build our village. And that's 5:46, so I did go over, I apologize, but thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Bior. And thanks so much for sharing more about how you pivoted your programming, and most importantly, how you shared that those shifts were really grounded in your all core values in the organization. So excited for the success in the merger, and really excited to hear more about what's to come. So thanks again, Bior. With that, I think I will turn us to Karen Pfefferly, Executive Director of Wellington Management Foundation, to share some of her reflections on this prompt.
Great, thank you, Sarah. And thanks, Bior, for that really inspiring overview of just how important your organization is and will continue to be to not just the students you serve, but to their families and to the whole community. And that's certainly the biggest takeaway that I want to share from the last year and a half. But first, I thought I'd give a little bit of context. The Wellington Management Foundation funds youth education programs in each of the cities and regions where Wellington Management Company has offices. Most of that giving is in Eastern Massachusetts, but we also give in Chicago, San Francisco, Philadelphia, and then the 4 Asia Pacific areas where we have offices. And we have a UK foundation that our London colleagues manage that give in youth education in the UK and in Europe. The foundation is governed by an advisory board of 12 to 15 partners, retired partners, and some mid-career colleagues across the firm, but also involves and engages more than 150 employee volunteers throughout the year to help with due diligence and to really build relationships with our portfolio of grantees. I've been leading this work since 2009 and really have a privileged position of leading strategy for the board and leading the rollout of our grant program over the last several years. And I think all of that makes us a really unique organization and really speaks to the importance of relationships and sort of the broad connections that we maintain with our grantees and what was really valuable in the last year and a half. Given all of that, the board also and I have been building a counter-cyclical investment strategy over the last couple of years so that we could be ready for a rainy day. And certainly we weren't wishing for that, and nobody anticipated that it would be a pandemic, but we wanted to be ready for a market downturn or for a moment where our grantees might be struggling with fundraising or finding unanticipated program costs. And so we could really step up last year. And I'll just quickly go through a couple of the things that we were able to do. First thing we did, and I remember it clearly, it was Friday the 13th of March last year. I sent emails to about 100 of our current and recently funded grantees offering $25,000 in unrestricted funds. We were hearing about the fears they had losing fundraising revenue if events were canceled. And we knew that we were able to step up, and this was just the first step. As the year went on, of course, we heard about all of the unanticipated programming costs organizations were funding as they were shifting and pivoting. And we were able to step up with some mission expansion that organizations went through as they were responding to the needs of their communities. We also made some larger grants last year to larger organizations operating at a more systemic level, funding technology upgrades, curriculum kits, making sure that we were helping organizations help families with remote learning. So fast forward to this year, certainly a lot of those challenges still exist. And so we realized that there was more for us to do. The first thing we did was commit a spend down of about 10% of our endowment to fund what we're calling a readiness project. And starting with summer 2021, we're looking at programs that are really adding rigor, academic rigor to existing programs, or adding mental health services to existing programs to really respond to what's happened to students and education in the last year and a half, and help get us back on track and to whatever the new normal might look like. And then in addition to that, we did host our own virtual gala this year and really met with greater success than we could have even imagined. So we've turned that around, and we're offering another round of emergency grants to our current grantees of $15,000 this year. And responding again to what we hear is needed to help with HR and DEI initiatives within organizations, and to help with adding additional staff or mental health resources to help with the challenges their communities are facing. So really proud of the work that we've been able to do to step in, really grateful to have a board that's with me 100% of the way. And the takeaway, that the silver lining, I guess, that really came out of all of this last year was just the really powerful and emotional testimonies of how valuable these organizations in our portfolio and beyond have been to the community. And, they may just have been, you might have thought it's just a wrestling program, as Bjorn was telling us, but that wrestling program is so valuable to those young people that that's who they go to in crisis. And that's the organization that could step up and really serve the community in this time of challenges that no one could have anticipated. And so hearing stories like that and learning about that depth of reliance that students have on these organizations, and the ability for our organizations to flex and to pivot has just been the most rewarding part of this work, and really validation for everything we've built and how we've been able to ourselves pivot and dig deeper in such a time of crisis. So that's my takeaway, and happy to talk further with anyone at any time offline about this work, and really glad to be part of this forum. So thank you, Sarah.
Wonderful. Karen, thank you so much. And thanks for your continued support and partnership. And of course, greatly appreciate you sharing how Wellington has pivoted in your own ways and has really stepped up to support, your portfolio organizations in new ways. So thanks so much for being here and for sharing more. And now I would like to turn it to Colin Killick, who is the Executive Director of the Disability Policy Consortium, who will respond to this prompt as well. So welcome, Colin.
I was muted. All right, there we are. Thank you so much, Sarah. It's so great to see so many familiar faces again. DPC, for those unfamiliar, we are a civil rights advocacy and research organization run by and for people with disabilities. More than 85% of our staff, myself included, have disabilities of one kind or another. And we had a remarkable time in SIF. We got an enormous amount out of it, from a fantastic executive coach, Steve Stelk, who I actually still work with, to graphic design and legal assistance, all kinds of in-kind services. To, of course, the chance to tell our story. I remember being up on that stage at the showcase talking about both my own experience and the massive difference that accommodations for my neurological disorder have made in my life, and the work we do to try and ensure everyone gets that chance. We didn't, I'll be honest, get out of our time in SIF was increased funding. And it's because we heard after that night and ongoing, because we're an advocacy organization, because our fundamental work involves making the case to policymakers that the rights of people with disabilities need to be protected. And what we were told is that a lot of funders aren't comfortable with that, and that we really ought to pivot, ought to launch more direct service programming that would be easier and more comfortable to fund. And so we tried, coming out of SIF, we tried to launch several of those programs. We had grants lined up, we had programming scheduled, and then the pandemic happened. And those services, that programming became unsafe to deliver in person, and that funding evaporated. And it evaporated at the precise moment when a pandemic that would ultimately kill hundreds of thousands of people with disabilities was beginning to worsen, and our work was needed more than ever. But luckily for us, we had some existing funders, some longtime friends who stepped up for us. Blue Cross Blue Shield Foundation, who has always been our largest funder of advocacy, saying, take this $60,000 a year that you get from us and pivot. Do what you need to do with your work. As well as Liberty Mutual Foundation, who I see we have some folks here from today, who gave us a COVID-19 support grant to help us replace some of that lost revenue. So we went to work. From winning 3 months prescription refills for everyone on Mass Health and getting overtime caps for personal care attendants lifted, to in the last several months, finally, after 4 months of asking, getting expanded prioritization for people with disabilities for vaccination, and a home vaccination program established that's helped, I believe, thousands of people with disabilities by this point get doses of vaccine. And when the state put crisis standards of care in place that would have sent people with disabilities to the back of the line for ventilators and hospital beds, we led the fight that got those standards overturned. We got named to the committee that wrote the new standards, and we wrote disability civil rights protections into those standards that have set a national precedent. So we're continuing with that work. It's been hard, it's been challenging. The consequences of the pandemic on people with disabilities will be felt for a generation. But we're pressing on, we are surviving, we're expanding, in fact. We're bringing on a new organizer in the next few weeks who will be focusing on the intersection of disability and racial justice. And we've learned too from our mistakes. This has been a hard year. We've all been pressing. We've all been dealing with life and death situations, and some folks on our staff have burned out, and have left. And we've put in place measures, including an on-staff counselor, including bringing on a full-time HR person to try and address those. But that's definitely something I wish I'd known at the beginning to focus more on. But if I have I guess a message to the funders in the audience, I would just say, thank you for what you do, but also trust the organizations that you support to know what they do and believe in the power of advocacy. Another thing this year, even in the span of all this, we are about to get the state to quadruple funding for the alternative housing voucher program that houses low-income people with disabilities, compared to where that program was when we started advocating for it in 2014, from 3.5 million to 14.2 million. That was, over that span of time, maybe $200,000 in organizing salaries turned into over $10 million in new funding for housing. So believe in these communities, believe in these organizations, especially when they come from marginalized populations, and give them the tools they need to do their work, and great things I think will happen. Thank you.
Colin, thanks so much. It's always so hard to follow up here from you, but thank you for your openness and transparency here, and just the reminder of how important advocacy work is, especially when it comes to systems change. So a huge thank you for all of the hard work you and the folks at DPC do. And again, a tremendous thanks to our presenters, Bior and Karen and Colin, for sharing your perspectives. So now I would invite you all to hear more from the 2019 innovators and reflect on your own response to this question in a breakout room. What have the past 2 years taught us that we want to carry forward? What's pushed our thinking? What have we done differently? And how will it inform us moving forward? So in a moment, you'll receive an invitation to join a breakout room for about 20 minutes, where you'll get to meet a couple of the 2019 innovators and a small group to discuss this prompt together.
I think most folks are back. I'm Carolyn Shaughnessy. I am the Director of Network Engagement at the Social Innovation Forum, and I'm going to close us out, but I know we saw that some people must have gone and gotten lunch when the breakout rooms happened. They did the breakout rooms sneak out. So I am aware that 6 of our innovators probably only told their story to 1 or 2 people. So I want to just take a minute and give I just want to create space if those innovators want to jump into this space and share a little bit about those questions. So I'm going to pause here and see if folks want to jump in. Don't be shy. Cameron, do I see your mute off? No. Okay.
We had a really great session in our breakout room and were able to share lots. So we just have some resounding gratitude, of course, to share for the entire SIF team and the experience. And we are so excited about the growth that's happened at Y2Y over the last 2 years and excited to grow more. So only gratitude to share. Thank you.
Ah, that's lovely. Thank you, Cameron. Any other innovators want to jump in? Let me just add, you're welcome to unmute and just jump in because I can't see everyone.
Oh, hi, Carolyn. This is Pat Spence. How are you?
Thanks, Pat. I appreciate it. Good. How are you? Good to see you.
Good. Yeah. No, we had a great session. And just real quick, UFI's goal was to first make sure our staff was okay, and so that was my priority. I'm talking COVID now. The staff was okay, family okay, and kind of UFI came third. That was the order of importance to me. But also the community needed food. So, we doubled the work at our farm stands. We got rid of that line item that said farm revenue, and we made a commitment. Anybody that needs food, and fresh food clearly coming from us, we would be there for them, and that they should come on that day and then come back and come back and come back. And when we stopped growing in October, we worked with our local food trucks and restaurants to make sure, they were able to stay afloat. And we actually delivered over 4,600 pre-made meals that would feed a family of 3 to 4. at that time. And as we all know, everybody was trying to grow food last year and still is this year. So we instituted a Build 100 Grow Boxes campaign where we're building it, bringing the soil, bringing the seedlings. And now we've actually started doing videos on how to grow this, how to grow that, and inviting people to come back on Zoom, ask us your questions. What can we help you with? So not just leaving someone with a raised bed, but how do you do it after that? How do you plan for the fall? How do you plan for the spring? So that's a huge area of work that we've embarked on. You know, so those are some of the things. And I just want to say that our funders were amazing, and they became more than funders. They truly became partners. And I was able to call so many of our funders and just say, help. But how can we do this? Does this make sense? This is how we're trying to pivot. So it was well beyond, you know, just a check. It was really, you know, help me understand what you can do with us, what we can do for you, what information you might need. A lot of funders were looking for the pulse of where everything was. And so we were able to respond to that too. And then so many people loosened the restrictions, which was fabulous for all of our nonprofits, I would say. So those are some of the things.
That's so helpful to hear. And I think there's so much that's meaty in what you said. First of all, I mean, amazed at the amount of pivots that you all made quickly. I'm awed by that. But I'm also, we've been hearing this, and I know there's a lot of programming around SIF around the mental health piece for staff and folks who are very close to the communities where you work. Many of them live in the communities where you work and are part of those communities. And so that mental health piece is, you know, as we sort of reimagine the future, I do hope that's something funders hold in the need to care for staff as a part of their support. So, and I loved, Pat, hearing about sort of how those relationships that you have with funders were so meaningful in a crisis that you know, folks you could go to. Any other of our innovators that haven't had a chance to speak want to jump in?
Hi, I'm Paige.
We know.
Oh,
Hi, Paige.
I'm Paige Academy, and in our breakout session, we just spoke a little bit about how the pandemic affected us. In the very beginning stages, we ended up closing our school. We have a school that teaches children from infant to 6th grade. And so in the beginning, our focus is really on providing at-home support, at-home learning opportunities, which was especially challenging for us because we have infants and toddlers. And that's not really a demographic that's easy to teach virtually. So we really wanted to figure out how to support the families and creating engaging learning experiences for their infants and toddlers that would be similar to the learning experiences that they would have received had they had been in the classroom environment, and also connecting them with resources in the community that could help support them in their family and whatever needs that they may have had at that moment. So that was one of our main emphasis. And Karen from the Wellington Foundation talked about the grant that she distributed to the organizations that her organization worked with, and we were lucky to be one of the recipients of that grant, which was very helpful for us at that time as we were trying to figure out how to continue to pay our teachers' salaries and providing these supports for our students when our students weren't actually enrolled and weren't paying tuition. So that really helped us to continue to stay connected and provide social and emotional support for the students. And then after about 5 months of being closed, we were able to reopen. So during that whole time, we were also trying to figure out how we can reopen and what changes we needed to make into the classroom, and trying to train our teachers and our admin staff and our whole faculty on what new regulations everyone needed to get on board with in order to welcome the students back into the school. And we had to make some renovations into the classrooms and change some of our physical space. So all of that was a really big push for us. And we were really happy that we reopened. We had to decrease the number of students that came back into the buildings. And as a result, we also had to decrease our staff, but now we're starting to build that back up to some of the numbers that we had prior to the pandemic. And one of the things that we really want to focus on moving forward is just having more outdoor learning. Sister Angela spoke about the outdoor classroom that we recently finished. And so we're further developing our outdoor curriculum, and we really want to continue that as Page Academy moves forward. And of course, we want to thank SIF for supporting us during the pandemic and for helping us to make the connections that we've made that have given us so much support during this time as well.
Thank you, Paige. Have been amazed to hear all of the new programming that's going to continue. I love the idea of your outdoor classroom, and I know it was in some ways born out of necessity. But I think there'll be a lot of things that were born out of necessity that will continue in a really healthy, strong way. So thanks so much, Paige. I appreciate that. Anyone else want to share for just a minute before we jump into our close? Claudia, did I see your hand?
Yeah. I'll be very brief. I think that, and this is really, my hat off to this community that SIF creates, because I think that more than, something that we've really seen over this last year, in addition to the work, the need, and, responding as we're serving immigrant communities, but that this has been a time when we as nonprofits are learning just as much as the funder community. And it's really felt like we're in this together. And there is so much that we have all and I appreciate really the openness of funders, not only to support our work, but to learn with us. I feel like it's just there's this incredible openness to sort of be having conversations like this one. And to see, and we don't know where we're going to go, but I definitely sense a new openness and a moment in which we're all learning as we never have before. So thank you to SIF for not, the support to us as nonprofits, but also for kind of creating this space.
Thanks, Claudia. I appreciate that. And I would agree that we are definitely all learning together, and that SIF has an intention to actually facilitate some funder nonprofit dialogues in the coming months. So I think we want to keep folks together. I think we recognize, in terms of the sustainability of the sector, we need to be in conversation and we need to be in relationships. So we will continue to work on that. Thanks for raising that up, Claudia. Okay, again, I don't have everyone on a page, so I'm going to move on unless somebody says don't. Okay. Kira, well, not quite yet. So I think we know that the coming year is actually not going to look like the last year, nor any of the years prior. I think we have learned some things and we have lots to learn. But I hope we're all thinking about practices we will reimagine to build sort of different, honest, more equitable relationships, a stronger sector, a more sustainable sector. So I thought we'd close today with a little exercise, not exercise, but an exercise. Kira, could you put up the slide for us? So I just want to give everyone an opportunity to consider what you've learned today, what you've talked about today. So you'll see on this slide a head, a heart, and feet. The head represents, after this conversation, what you might be thinking. The heart represents what you might be feeling. And the feet, after participating in this session, what is one thing you're excited about implementing or doing? So I wonder if folks would like to share. You can, again, turn off your mute button and you can share with all of us, or you can put something in the chat. Happy to see folks in the chat. So I'm not a big fan of having the slides up. I much prefer to see people. So I'm just gonna say one more time. What are you thinking? What might you be feeling as we head off? Or what are you excited about implementing or doing? And then I'm gonna ask Kira to take the slide down, and maybe folks could say one thing, thinking, feeling, or doing.
I can jump in.
Yes, go ahead.
Oh,
Thank you.
thank you.
Cameron, you go
So-
first, and then Tracy.
Okay.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, Carolyn. I was just going to say, I am feeling really inspired by hearing from everyone about all of the wonderful ways in which folks have shifted to better serve those that they like work on behalf of and work in partnership with over the last 2 years. And it's been just incredible to hear about all of the wonderful ways in which folks have really centered the voices of our constituents and those that we serve over the last 2 years. I think, you know, as Y2Y, where youth voice is so central to what we do and who we are, and literally, you know, our founding and how our architectural space is designed, everything from that to implementation of our programming is not only informed by, but really decided upon by young people. Hearing all of you talk about the ways in which you've shifted your work over the past year to continue to be able to serve people facing incredible barriers and challenges in the pandemic. It's just really, really inspiring to be in such an amazing group of people.
Thank you, Cameron. Tracy, did you want to jump in?
Sure. I absolutely agree with everything that Angela just said. I wanted to add, because I've been thinking so much about it, so I just wanted to try to be succinct and share this. In addition to my work, I'm involved in a PhD program at Salve University, and it focuses on the humanities and technology. And I'm in a history of technology class right now. And I was surprised at how much the progression of technology was connected to food production, and how in some places technology did not progress as quickly because of the need, like, of hunting and gathering and less access to food production and everything that entails with that. And it's been mind-blowing for me. And, you know, when Pat was speaking about how they served all of the basic needs of food and how we held back because even we wanted to, but we had never done this before. And we knew that we needed to kind of save our funds for when we could start running our Creative Careers program again. And as a director, I remember at one point there was a grant for basic need funding. And I was like, I can't ask for technology when people need food. And I remember saying, I just can't. I can't even have the conversation because it feels so awkward for me. But that was our main need of technology for our youth to be at home and learn, and for our instructors. And, you know, maybe in that decision, it held us back, and I should have had the conversation with the funder because they would have been open to it. But, you know, I'm still very aware that our basic needs of food and the progression of technology is still with all of us. And, you know, so I'm feeling very thoughtful about how we as an organization can help, and how funders can also contribute to this technology need for progression for all of us, as we clearly saw in the pandemic. And how we can connect it still to our community needs of being social and it together in person and online.
Thank you for making that linkage, Tracy. I appreciate how your continuous learning, one of SIF's core values, sort of brought you to that thinking. I just want folks to also take a look in the chat. I'm seeing some folks responding to what they're thinking, feeling, and doing. Anyone else want to jump in?
This is Joe Cook from Page Academy, and it makes me feel good to have this discussion because it confirms a lot of what Page Academy has been doing, what our mission is. We're centered on 7 principles, and one principle is unity, and I can see us all coming together to become one in supporting each other, and self-determination is another principle. And we have to be self-determined to get through this pandemic and all the barriers that we face now, all the isms that we're going up against. We have another principle, which is collective work and responsibility, that we do much better when we work together. Many hands make little work. We have cooperative economics. You know, we need each other. We need to share our resources with each other so we can be successful at what we're doing, pulling people together. And then we have creativity, and we've already talked about that, how we had to use our creativity in this time and other times preceding this. And then we have faith and purpose. Those are really important here because we learn by developing relationships with each other, we learn to trust each other. That's what I wanted to say.
Thank you. That was actually beautiful. Appreciate you, I don't know, calling out those principles. I think a lot of them are connected to what we're talking about today. And I appreciate, Joe, you raising that up. Anyone else want to jump in?
This is John Dudley from LEAP. Just to dovetail on those comments, those beautiful comments. We need to have that constant communication and that dialogue. And at the end of the day, that takes time, and that's our most precious commodity, right? So I'm hopeful that despite how chaotic and fast paced this past year was, we still took the time to have more conversations, asked more meaningful questions, had deeper dialogue with partners, constituents, community stakeholders. And I hope that continues both within our arena, but just in general, that we take the time to be more thoughtful and intentional with everything that we're doing, and to see where those boundaries can be pushed to do some work that we always think sometimes is on the tertiary or is siloed, but could be more pivotal to the work that we're doing. I especially around the work we're doing in DEI, using that lens. Again, it takes time and it takes intention to unpack that and properly, plan and strategize and make those meaningful moves that are going to last for a long time. So I appreciate everybody and all of your work too, and all of our funders.
Thanks, John. I think your focus on this is long, hard work, and we're going to be in this for a long time. And doing this with intention is of great value. Anyone else?
Like Bonnie has a raised hand.
Bonnie, jump in, please.
Sure. Yeah, I was already feeling ahead of this, pretty excited about upcoming opportunities for founders to work together on giving more equitably. But I have to say, I'm really excited just hearing that proactively from people here, and that kind of across the board, innovators and founders are starting to think about people as entire humans instead of trying to look at just one tiny area of them, recognizing that everything is connected. So I'm just super excited by that.
Thanks, Bonnie. I think that's absolutely right. Okay, if there's any last comments? I'm just going to take one look for any hands. Anyone who wants to jump in? Okay, I want to appreciate all of you. I want to appreciate our innovators, not just for today, but yes, for today, but for this year. I want to, acknowledge my awe of your work and the shifts you made and the growth and progress and new programming and that's happened over this year. And I want to thank our funders for being in conversation and listening and learning. I think that's really probably the most important thing we can do right now is be in conversation together. And thanks to the SIF team always for supporting our events. So great to see all of you. And I am going to close us out. Appreciate you giving us your lunchtime today.